All right, guys, thanks for joining in for another episode of Upstream with RiverX. Today, I'm joined by the guys from CorpSure. But before we jump into it, we have to have our standard disclaimer. So anything that we talk about today shouldn't be considered as personal advice. It's for general information purposes only and factual information. If you do require financial advice, please reach out to a financial advisor, one of the RiverX advisors, or the team from CorpSure with any general questions that you may have. But without further ado, team, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks, Kieran. Absolutely stoked to be here with you, mate. And we've got the founder of CorpSure here too, Justin. So I'm sure, Justin, you'll tell everyone about the history of CorpSure, mate.
Thank you, Benny. Thanks, Kieran. It's good to be here, mate. It's casual for me today. I've got a T-shirt on, which I very rarely wear. I'm always in a suit. So to come down to the Sydney office, obviously Gold Coast based, but to come to the Sydney office without a suit, it's quite a novelty for me and I'm quite enjoying it. So try and keep it a little bit casual today. But Kieran, thank you, mate. Benny, thanks for the introduction. We started CorpSure 13 years ago, 2013, sorry. So we're in our 11th or 12th year. Started from scratch. We're very much a boutique intermediary. We've grown that to circa 50 mil GWP under management with a diverse portfolio of clients, from trucking companies to hospitality. We're big in the sporting space as well, right through from the retail sector. Real estate's a big market for us as well. So we've got quite a diverse portfolio under management. We've got offices on the Gold Coast, Sydney, Cairns, and Melbourne. So we've got quite a good reach across the eastern seaboard. A lot of clients in Perth as well that we manage, but try not to go to Perth too much. It's a bit of a hike. We've got, like I said, quite a diverse portfolio under management. We're very keen to partner with RiverX Group, which is exciting for us. We think we've got some good synergies that we can build together, and we're keen to progress more.
Yeah. And Benny, a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so fortunately for me, I met Justin nearly 10 years ago now. I was at a large corporate international firm for close to 10 years and knew that, one of the different challenge in my career, and I was very, very, I look back now and it's the best thing that happened in my life to meet Justin, and went up there, moved from Sydney to the Gold Coast to be with CorpSure, who were relatively new at that stage. And I could just see Justin's vision. I could just see the go in him and the drive he had. And I knew that was the right move for me. And, we've gone from a boutique broker there to the largest privately owned or thereabouts. And obviously now, and we came down, established Sydney about 6 years ago and became a partner of the business. And just, going from strength to strength, but a lot to Justin, boy, that's for sure.
It's a big wrap for me, mate. I'm pretty pumped with that, Benny. Thanks, mate.
So just to give our listeners some context around the work that you do and the work that you would do with someone like RiverX. So you're a general insurance provider, and can you give me some color on I guess, the type of cover you typically provide or perhaps your most frequent policies that you might write?
Yeah, it's a good question, Kieran. I mean, like as I touched on, we're very diverse portfolio, so it's hard to really. I can't sit here and say this is what we do best. What we can say is we can tell you the areas that we're top heavy in, and that's certainly the construction industry. We write quite a lot of business. Professional indemnity, real estate industry is a big one for us. We've got circa, I think I mentioned 600 before, Benny, but that number's substantially grown. I think you had numbers in the boardroom circa 2,000 that we probably managed offices nationally. Offices nationally. So the real estate's a big one for us. Group schemes are big. Zambreros are probably one of the largest retail groups we have collectively from a head office level. Right through to, like I said, trucking companies as well. So there's certain key areas that we're probably top heavy in, but again, diverse portfolio. The experience that we have in our group, whilst we're I think we're quite a young, dynamic team. I'm 41, Benny's nearly 40. We're the two probably most mature in the company. We've got a young, dynamic team. So for us to be able to, I guess, bring our experiences, and whilst we say we're young, 40, we're probably getting a bit old now anyway. And I feel like we, I don't want to say we're still learning. Every day you learn, but from an insurance perspective, we've really got this thing nut down. Yeah. We really do. We've got some great clients, some very technical clients. We do a lot in the financial services space, giving advice there, which is a very hard market, particularly with those that in ASX listed. but the PI space is quite difficult in that sector. But we've got some very good contacts through London, and I think that helps us immensely. But certainly Ben and I holding the fort, I guess, for a better word, teaching our younger team. When I say younger, guys in their late 20s, early 30s. They're very coachable, very young, very keen. So I think Benny and I'd like to say we bring a bit of grey hair into the business, because I'm certainly at that stage now. So, so I think, hard to say what we do exactly. Hard to say what. There's a lot we do. We do a lot, and we those areas that we're top heavy in are great, but certainly, like I said, there's a diverse portfolio under management. We've got a lot of expertise in a lot of areas.
And I think to give our listeners some relevance about how we would work with a group like yours. So when we sit down with a client, we go through what's called a fact find, and that's where we understand the client's goals, their needs, their objectives, and then insurance comes in as part of that conversation. So that's where we'll look at things like their policies and understand how much they're paying, but also assess where they can get some cover. And you mentioned London just a second ago. So one of the things that I'm aware of is that if you want to get a good policy and a big policy and competitive rate, you got to go to the trading floor in London to go negotiate those rates. Can you just tell listeners a little bit about how that works? Like, do you guys go over there and negotiate deals, or you have contacts? How does it all work?
Benny, I'll give that one to you, mate. I know you've had experience in London, so
yeah, no, absolutely, Kieran, and it probably shows a sign of our growth. You go back probably 5 years ago. We're probably getting 2 or 3 day, 5 day returns when we send it to underwriters. You're dealing with the syndicate, for example. So Lloyds of London's about 52 different syndicates. They all work on the same street and basically rub shoulders with each other each day. A lot of people see Lloyds of London on their policy and think it's all the same, where it's actually not. So over the journey, we have been able to establish some really strong relationships. One particularly is Ocean Underwriting. Been 2 years. I think they've just ticked 2 years. We've really formed a really strong relationship there. We've backed them from the get-go, and they've done the same to us. I'm going over to London with them in October to meet the underwriters, backing them face to face. But those key partnerships for us has been a big part of our growth. Particularly the last 5 years, we've really started to hit home, going from people not knowing, who CorpSure were to, we're a well-known name in the industry now, which we're proud of.
I've seen it firsthand. So I'm a client of CorpSure, and the way this came about at its inception it wasn't the inception of your company, inception of the professional relationship. Is we had a mutual contact. He's in the construction industry. He referred my wife to you, because she's in the construction industry, and you're able to get some sharper policies. Then I started RiverX in January 2023, and I said, right, well, now let's talk about the business PI and cover, and that relationship's just grown. So just recently, we've had a good win with CorpSure, where you were able to renegotiate our rates on certain policies to make it a bit more competitive for us. Can you maybe, for the benefit of the listeners again, give us a bit of colour on how that works from a practical standpoint for CorpSure? Like, do you have dates in your diary when policies are maturing, and then you go and contact and reassess, contact clients and reassess those policies as they come up?
Yeah, exactly right. And a business like yours is a really good example, Kieran, and obviously, and Laura's your wife. So businesses change, each year changes. So that, we really need to get on the front foot at least 2 months, even earlier, to really, get the process started. It's all income driven when you look at professional indemnity and what your background and your experience is. So we do start the process quite early. And obviously then, we have that conversation and then engage a number of insurers. We've never been a broker to go out and flood the market. We really prefer to stick with a couple of people we trust, for them to get the right rate for us, but also deliver on claims. Generally 2 months, and then we want to have terms presented 30 days. And as you know, quick phone call, or preferably catch up and go over that. And obviously each year, we want to get the best policy we can at the best price. Price isn't everything. You want the right cover, but end of the day, it comes off our bottom line as a business owner. So you do want to try and save where you can.
And in terms of our clients are we've got a lot of business owners as clients, and you've got a diverse range of clients. If you were to sort of say who your general demographic is, I know it's broad. Is it like your equipment heavy type business? Is it your sort of franchise style business? Or is it someone like ours where there's a lot of IP and and all that sort of stuff built into it. What does it normally look like for you?
Yeah, the ideal client is definitely someone that, they do have, probably 20 employees plus kind of business. Absolutely, we can do from a startup. Justin's got a very successful, large international company. He started as a startup business on the Gold Coast. Now they're the largest teeth whitening business in the world. So, we can start right down and build through. That's, but the ideal, like we're very competitive in hospitality space from franchise all the way down to the single pub owner. Absolutely. It's all very important, but, there's manufacturing, your L Corp builders. They're probably the sweet spots there. Sport, as Justin mentioned, but I guess we have got relationships now where we really can do anything, to be fair. Absolutely. We're going to probably be, know a bit more about some of the things we specialize in, but we are a commercial broker. We can do it all.
And so we had a meeting before this where we went through claim rates and premiums. What does the premium look like when you, without naming names, when you're looking at those bigger sort of enterprises? How much a year can you expect to see in premiums as a general rule? And maybe give us a flavour of sort of what the most expensive might be towards like sort of mid-scale and lower end premiums. What do they look like?
Yeah, I think the largest premium we have on file would be probably 2.5 to 3 mil annually premium, which is quite substantial. But their assets are very, very high, and those larger ones, that how we work it, we rate it on a cent rate basis. Their rates are normally pretty competitive because the assets are quite large. So you negotiate, to get that deal done lower, but that goes down all the way to $5,000. It really depends on the risk. Some of the smallest clients we've had come through the door have been turned into some of our biggest. So
and sorry, Benny, and it varies on location too. It's not just a risk type. We've got obviously our office in Cairns. You can to keep it very simple. You pick a building up that's down here in Sydney, and if let's call it a $50 million building, premium might be $120,000 annually. You pick that same building up, take it north of the 26 parallel, put it somewhere up there, you're probably paying $350,400 for the same risk, same building, same values, same sums insured, same income stream. So it does vary not just on your business type, but your location, your number of employees, your claims history, and those sort of things too. So it's hard to say. It's hard to really pinpoint that question for you, but
so that means there would have to be like a risk matrix that they have to go through, and geography matters because there'd be things like natural disasters that factor into the equation.
Yeah, of course.
So how does that work? When you sit down with a client, you then go through a fact find process of your own, which then goes through all those different factors. And then does that give them like a risk score, or how does that work in terms of determining the premium?
Look, it does. But I think, and to talk about the ideal client, we've had clients come across been referred to us, to our office to write business. And for us, we're data hungry. We need the right information. We've had clients and most clients are pretty good. In fact, all of our clients are great. They're forthcoming with information. They understand that, it's a laborious process initially when to become to onboard, if you will, to CorpSure. Once we have a lot of that data, the renewal process becomes a lot easier. It's then just updating the figures that we need. So I think, the important thing for us is obtaining data. So, and it does give you if you will, a risk matrix. A postcode driven insurance companies have, if you're in a flood area, the flood mapping that we have now, the data we have on flood mapping, we can pinpoint to certain lots on streets, right up to within half a meter of a front door, if you will. So the flood mapping is very good as we sit here today. So that's important. But then again, above that 26 parallel, you become cyclone prone. Having said that, we had a cyclone in the Gold Coast 2 weeks ago, albeit a Cat 2. We're not really geared up for those cyclones. Whereas you look at North Queensland, the cyclones have run through there for the last however long. Everything is built to code, built to spec. So they're a lot more. They can withstand a Cat 2 or a Cat 3, and they just basically get about their business. Whereas a Cat 2 rolls down to the southern states, houses aren't and properties aren't really built for that spec. So you've got flood mapping, you've got cyclone areas, you've got your risk, your risk analytics that we need are turnover, staff numbers, your industry you're in. Insurance companies run on a matrix, if you will, called an ANZIC code, and that's a national database of coding that insurers use that generate rates, whereas from a 1 to a 3, it's a very good risk. It might be an office building. It's obviously low touch. Obviously 5 to 7, somewhere in there is mid risk. It might be restaurant type operations where they're high fire risk, and then anything sort of 8s and 9s can potentially be declines. So certain insurance companies have different, some insurance companies are willing to take on more risk and take those higher risk operations, whereas some insurance companies will get to a 9 or an 8 and say, no, it's a decline for us. There's a lot of variables that come into the insurance space.
So just talking about the situation which is well publicised on the Gold Coast, which is the Cat 2 cyclone that you talked about, that impacted a lot of people and clients of ours, and even staff that we have based up there as well. One thing that as investors we look at is when we're looking at insurance companies that have natural disaster provisions in there. Is that something that factors into claims for you guys? And did you have a lot of claims that came through from those events up on the Gold Coast?
We did. The short answer to that is yes, we did. We touched on some claim numbers earlier. I think last year we settled last financial year we settled about 8.5 million in claims paid to clients. I suspect that number will grow substantially off the back of the cyclone we've had here, obviously, and don't keep in mind there was a non-cyclone year last financial year, and in the year prior there was a lot of flooding, some big flooding. So what was the question again? Sorry, mate.
I was asking about
cut that out.
Now, my question was about the natural disaster provisions that your Suncorps, your IAGs have, and does that factor into their ability to pay out claims? Because when we were speaking earlier, you mentioned there was something about where they'll go to the offshore underwriters to provide them with additional firepower to deal with those claims. So when you get events like what happened in Queensland, is there a good level of surety that those people will be able to get cover on their claims?
Yeah, it's a good question. So as I touched on earlier, all insurances feed back into the global markets. We had an event claim in 2 years ago on the right from Lismore, flooding event from Lismore right up to the Sunshine Coast. That was the largest event claim insurers have ever paid, and it was about 5.3 billion from one event. So it's a very large, widespread event. Now, insurance companies, to give an example, will only pay the first of that 5.2 or $3 billion. Insurance companies only pay half of that. 2.5 billion. The balance then goes into the reinsurers, because insurance companies have insurance too. So the reinsurance companies come back and say, well, thank you, Mr. Vero or Mr. Suncorp or Allianz, here's your insurance renewal for the year. So then we start to see increases come up across the board, because people say, well, I didn't flood, I didn't have a storm, I haven't put a claim in. Why are my premiums going up? They're going up for that exact reason, that it all feeds back into global markets. Global markets give you an insurance premium back, and prices have to increase. Those that are impacted in those pockets that have historically have a lot of claim damage or flooding or fire, they're going to pay much higher premiums than I guess the rest of the population would. So we're always going to be able to find cover for those areas that are very heavily impacted in flooding or storm. So that it's always available, but it just comes down to cost. It really does. Gets to a point where clients just say, we just can't afford it. Which is unfortunate.
And that's where we sort of come into the equation on the other side, making sure that they have enough cash flow and enough investments there to fund these type of events if they do come up, and to cover their premiums, more importantly. And one of the things that we get asked a lot, and that investors will look at a lot as well, is people. In Australia generally, investors have an affinity with the Australian property market. And we find that
for good reason too. Yeah.
Well, it goes well in a lot of locations, but the East Coast in particular has a lot of bushfire prone and flood prone regions as well. You mentioned something earlier about a flood mapping and technology and all that sort of stuff that the insurance providers now use to actually identify what's a high risk and a low risk area. How does that work? Is that like a system that's come in recently, or is that something that has been there for quite a long time?
Look, it's been there for a long time. I couldn't give you a date, certainly well before my time. But the technologies and advancements and I guess experiences as well have we've got a lot more data on it. These events, particularly North Queensland or in Queensland as a whole, are becoming a lot more recurrent. So there's actual data on it now, live data, opposed to looking at analytics at where potentially the floods could come or where it might hit. We had 2011, the biggest issue we had was the dam walls. They had to release water from the dams, and that is why we had so much flooding. And I there was a Royal Commission, I believe, into what happened there. I think it was wrong. There was even discussions last week when we had the cyclone that we were going to potentially release water from the dam. Just doesn't make sense. Let's wait. But yeah, so look, I think there's a lot more actuary data that we have now on flooding, and they've invested a lot of time in it. It's mainly the council stuff that do it. Certainly at the federal level, there's been a lot of money put into the flood mapping, but at local government level in Queensland, there's a lot of money invested into mapping those areas.
Would you say if someone's looking to purchase a property in one of those areas, it's probably worth reaching out to CorpSure before 100%. Doing that to understand the risk of the investment you're taking on as well?
I'm sorry, Benny, exact point. I've got a client now who's doing DD. They're a large childcare firm. They're about 45 centres within Queensland. They're doing DD on a site at the moment, and the vendor does not have flood cover, never had. It can't get it. So obviously it's DD for our client to be able to seek flood cover on that. And we've managed to secure flood cover. So the clients then proceeded to settle on the property.
So they would come to you when they're looking to purchase an asset in a region, and they come to you for basically to consult, and then see if they can assess if they can get cover before they'll proceed and buy the asset, which is really valuable from a DD perspective for our clients and anyone looking to buy real assets across the country as well. In terms of DD, do they come to you as well with business purchases? So if you're looking to buy like a trucking company or something that has real assets, are you part of that conversation early on?
Yeah, actually, I'm going through one right now for a guy buying a couple of commercial properties in North Queensland. As Justin alluded to earlier, it is quite expensive up there. So he's come to us and said, what am I looking at per annum for insurance? So he wanted to make that decision, what the insurance was going to cost before he went into the agreement. And we've given him the quotes, and now he's going to purchase that property because he feels comfortable with the rate that we've provided. So it is definitely part of the process.
And if you so thinking about the claims that you paid out, you had a great number of payouts last year, which is great in terms of total number of claims. Do you have some success stories about clients where they've had a really good outcome, or where you might have helped someone get a better outcome where they weren't able to get it just making the claim on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can say how good we are and what we do, but we're nothing without claims, right? It's a claims made business, and that's something we really pride ourselves on is getting claims paid. We've got our own in-house claims team on the Gold Coast. Very fortunate. Dana, our national claims manager, is very proactive. Recently with the cyclone claims, no one expected a Cat 2 cyclone to hit the Gold Coast. Hadn't happened in 30 odd years. So, we've had, numerous large franchise groups out of business for 5 days. They were able to get covered for business interruption, which they were absolutely ecstatic at, as you can imagine. So, we've had some really big ones over the years, absolutely. But that one for me stands out. It's an event that no one expected to happen. We had settlements within 2 days. So, some of those are large franchise group connections, which, gives us good rap in the group. So, Justin, any claim examples you can think of, mate?
Look, I think Debbie was a very big one, big event, massive event, obviously, that hit Proserpine with Sundays. Early Beach specifically. At the time, we had a few of the big pubs up there, which were obviously just it was a massive event. That thing rolled through and it rolled through for many hours.
Is that the one that wiped out? Was it Hayman Island? And they had the big resort and it was completely gone.
We had some big claims up there. I remember that.
So that was a big one for us. One of the pubs we had up there at the time, and you don't forget you're in a regional area, and that's the gateway to the Winter Sundays. There's that many pubs and bottle shops. Everyone loads up and then off through the island. So it's a real gateway there, and that was a big one for us. I flew in, I was in there. Everything was just devastated. You couldn't get in or out. Isolated. I think I got in there day 4, flew in via Rockhampton, then drove through from, was it not Rockhampton? What's the Mackay. Start again. Cut that, mate. Isolated, very isolated area. flew in. We day 4, I got in from Mackay and drove through to Proserpine. We had trades in there, specifically for one of the pubs. We had trades in there with commercial generators, and they were trading and operating the very next day. So it was 5 days after the cyclone. It was the first thing open. There was nothing else operating, and everyone was at the pub. You know, everyone went to the pub. That for me was a really, really a memorable claim. As probably we had a lot of claims up there,
Yeah, it's good.
and a lot of cover, but to get the pub open the day after everything was basically open, but the only thing they got stuck on, they couldn't sell food because the water was contaminated. So the council basically said, look, you can't sell food because we can't guarantee that when you're cleaning the lettuce for the hamburgers that it's not going to be contaminaminated. But they were certainly happy to sell beer. So, and the pub was heaving.
That's great.
And that was cool. So that was fun. And and it's the same. You look at the cyclone we had in Queensland. Obviously, I'm on the Gold Coast. The sad day, everyone lost power. There was isolated pockets of, blocks that had power, but 90% of the Gold Coast was out of power. And then you had these little pockets of clubs. So everyone was ringing around trying to find a club that was open on the Saturday. And we found one at Rabina that was open, and we had about 10 families that all just banged straight down, and it was heaving. So I think it's something about getting pubs operational in Australia during event claims, and it sort of brings everyone together. So that was a bit of fun.
So you're doing community service,
correct.
as well as get the business back on track
and get the kids out of the house too. It's good.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think, I think it's awesome the work you do, and I've personally had a good experience, which is why I wanted to connect and bring you into my network, and then also share the contact with our group of financial advisors. We've actually got a bloke up in Brizzy, and he experienced all those things, like the power going out, and also got the benefit of getting back to the pub pretty early as well, which he loved. But I've personally had a really good experience with you guys, and even recently, you, like I said, you managed to get me a really good rate on another policy. So the purpose of today was to connect you with our advice community and network of financial advisors, and then to send this out to our clients, so then they can understand the benefits that we receive in terms of getting the right type of cover to keep our businesses running, but also more importantly at the right rate, so as that we're not paying out too much, because that cost saving then helps us create stronger strategies for the client to then set themselves up for the rest of their lives. Yeah, which is really powerful. Can you one thing we haven't touched on, if someone wants to find you guys, where do they find you?
The pub.
You can jump onto corpsure.com.au and all our personal details for Justin and myself, and the team are there. Absolutely reach out anytime. Let us know they've come as a listener of the podcast or from River. So no, absolutely keen. And if I can, actually want to quickly touch on something before we go. So we've tried to stay innovative for as long as we've been now. 13 years is relatively young, but just for any investors out there for the residential space, Justin and I have come out with a new, so keep an eye on the word sensor insure. I just want to give it a little plug while we're here. So what it has done is it's going to really change the game of investment. It's all an online portal. Basically, you take out a building and landlord insurance policy and you get free compliance, upgraded and free compliance. So, there's other competitors out there that are just doing their landlord insurance. This here compliance, you get a monitored smoke alarm system in the house, upgraded, which is through its own 4G network. So now the property manager and the landlord have a direct site to the property. But the biggest claim we have for residential insurance is water damage. So you get given this upgraded alarms, and you actually give them water detection. So under the flexi hose or the dishwasher or the washing machine, this will let off an alarm if you're away from your property and there's any kind of water liquid escape. So keep an eye on that one there. The rates are phenomenal because of the direct insight in the property. But any investors out there in residential space, jump on it. It's going to make your life easier, the property manager, and a substantial savings there as well.
What about for commercial?
It's going to come to commercial. We're starting in the residential space, but absolutely we're going to partner with some key underwriters, and we'll come out for the commercial.
I just had a mate in an office building message me to use our offices because his office flooded.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
So it's a building down here in Martin Place that's flooded 4 or 5 times apparently.
Yeah, it's going to happen there too.
Yeah, so I see it all the time, and we just signed a client who is a Sydney CBD based plumber, and basically they provide maintenance. So in the meeting when I met the guy, his phone was going off the hook, and it was just continual flooding issues at different properties. So he's got 27 buildings signed on in Sydney CBD, works with your Dexuses and all those type of groups, and he does all the maintenance. But I can tell you, just sitting there, the frequency was reasonably high on the commercial flooding, because someone's always blocked a toilet or a sink or a dishwasher or something like that in an office around the city. So that sounds exciting, mate.
Yeah, no, exciting one. It's been a bit of work in that one. We're excited, Justin.
Yeah, very much.
Will that be on your website?
It will be. There'll be a landing page on there. So you'll be able to go on there and up the top tab there, you'll be able to find that one there, and you can get a quote within 2 minutes and paid policy. So it's pretty special. It's all online, very tech driven, powered through AI. Yeah.
Well, if anyone wants to reach out to the guys, I'm going to put their details in the bio of the podcast, and I'll be sharing it with our community. And guys, remember, it's CorpSure. So if you pop online, call through, you'll get in touch with one of the guys. You can ask to speak to them directly. But if you have any questions, please just reach out.
Appreciate your time today,
Thank
Kieran.
you, mate. And also for our listeners, anyone out there, hello. Just for our listeners, I think, it's important for us, the relationship with RiverX. For us, we don't like referring clients. We just don't refer clients. For us, it needs to be a strong, solid relationship, because a referral is a direct reflection on us. So that's important for us. The relationship that we've forged with RiverX has been really good. They look after our stuff personally, from personal insurance right through to our buy-sell agreement that Benny and I have. So they're a trusted partner of ours. We're not handballing you to someone down the road. That's the most important thing for us, and I think probably works both ways for RiverX clients that are coming to CorpSure. You're not just being handballed to someone, to CorpSure. You've been handballed to a partner of RiverX, and that's important for us.
I think the fact that we're both personally using each other's services sort of speaks for itself. So we're both invested in each other and our continued growth together. But guys, thank you so much for coming on today.